Welcome to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. I'm Jamie Greaves, your host and professional property investor. I'm here to bring you insights, home truths and powerful stories about what really goes on in property investment, business and growing your dream lifestyle. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the Lifestyle Property Podcast, and welcome to episode 5, which is titled The UK's Worst Property Investor. So to recap, for those who haven't listened to the previous episode, but before I started investing in property myself, I did 2 years background research. So I was researching property whilst in my career, because I'm a very risk-averse individual. So that means that everything went smoothly, right, from the outgo. Nope. As the episode title would indicate, it did not start well for me. Okay, I laugh now, but it was no laughing matter back then. And there's a huge amount of lessons contained in this podcast, and our losses, our failures are far richer than our wins. So I honestly think that 5 years ago, I was the worst investor in the UK. I did it all wrong. And I'm going to give you insights into that now, because there's a lot you can learn from this. If you simply just don't make these mistakes, it'll bring huge value for you. Okay, so let's get into it. So where did I go wrong? Where do I start? Well, number one, I tried doing everything myself. I've always been a very self-driven individual. Had to be, because of my upbringing. So I thought it'd be normal to do everything. And in careers where we're relatively competitive, so while we're really friends and friendly with our colleagues, there's competition and courage. Property's not like that, by the way. Property's really collaborative. I love it for that reason. But I tried to do everything myself. Now, in hindsight, this was a huge mistake. Okay, I should have worked with other people from day one. Those who take a collaborative mindset win. They win. In whatever class we want to call winning, you'll make more money, you'll have a better lifestyle, you have more fun, you'll have more wealth, you name it. You win by being collaborative. Okay, and now everything I do is a collaboration, but I was trying to do it all myself. So what I mean by that is I was doing viewings myself, I was trying to price up refurbs and maybe going to do the refurb works myself, trying to do too many things. Okay, and I didn't have, at that point, I didn't have a mentor, no one to go to, no one to get advice from, to ask questions to. That was a huge mistake. And I didn't have business partners or joint venture partners. And at that point, I didn't even have my professional team. So my accountant, my lawyer, my broker, my architect, my planning consultant. I was trying to do it alone. I'll never forget, I went to a property networking meeting one evening. It was a late, you've seen them, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Everyone's tired, everyone's pitching each other the same thing. And I'd done 11 viewings that day. 11 viewings, and I didn't make an offer on any one of them. I was too busy trying to do it all alone, and I'll come on to that as point number 3. I was trying to do it all alone. Okay, it wasn't working. And then another thing, so number 2 in terms of points is, I found a real lack of support and care in the property education system, in the property education and training sector. I really did. It lacks regulation. It is bonkers to me that anyone can become a deal sourcer and anyone can become a trader and a mentor without any correct education or regulation or compliance. It's just crazy nuts. And now in my world, so obviously we all know that education is very important, and particularly within property investment, because it's vast sums of money. You don't want to make grave mistakes. Some of the mistakes people make, it sets you back years. You'll lose a lot of money. So we know that we need to get educated. No one will ever dispute that. And it's an absolutely fundamental reason for my success now, the education that I got, of course. But the training companies that I encountered, I'm not going to name names because I don't like to bring negative energy into my life and I want to work abundantly. But everything was an upsell. I was treated like a number. Okay, it was all marketing. The book led to the 1 day, the 1 day to the 3 day, the 3 day to the 6 month, the 6 month to the 1 year, the 1 year to a trip to Marbella. They don't know your surname. They don't really care. They don't know your goals, your aspirations, your ambitions, or your weaknesses, or your limits. And it was, I wasn't looked after. So I will take responsibility. It's my fault. I should have found a better mentor earlier on. I should have gone smaller. I shouldn't have gone for one of the big trading companies because you don't get looked after. But I felt all alone. So just to build a picture, I was trying to do it all alone, and then I felt all alone because when I'd go to these training companies, they're just pitching me the next one, the next thing, the next strategy. We don't want to learn 50 strategies. That's really unhelpful. You'll get nothing but a foggy mess in your head. If you learn about SAs, flips, holiday letters, buy-to-lets, commercial conversions, BRR, it's too much. It's too much. And that's where my head was at. I was full of information, but I had no one to go to ask advice, guidance. Should I focus on this first or that first? Is this a good area? Is this a bad one? It's a good deal. I didn't have that. Oh, my Lord, I wish I did. But the property education sector let me down. So when I became a mentor a few years ago, I vowed to do it for this reason, to help people like I wasn't helped, to be the change that I needed to see some years ago. And I'm really, really proud of that. So here I was, without going all alone, without any proper support. And it's really, really damaging. And then unbeknown to me, I had limiting beliefs as well. So I mentioned on one of the first few podcasts that I grew up poor. We didn't have wealth. No one around me discussed investments or asset classes or wealth or early retirement. I just get your head down and work hard and save. That's all I knew. And I had hidden blind spots. Okay. And I'm going to say now that the vast majority of us do. A good 99, unless you are a therapist or you've been through a lot of therapy, and therapy shouldn't be a shameful bad word here. And so there's something like therapy can be really top sports people, top musicians, top actors, top business people get help. They get mentors in all aspects of life, including a mind therapist, i.e. counsellors, and it can be really, really advantageous. I didn't have that. So what I was doing, guys, just to paint a picture, and don't do this, I was running around like a headless chicken in my investment area because the training companies told me that I had to hit so many KPIs and so many viewings. It's all BS. It's not true. Okay, we want quality, not quantity. And I wasn't making offers. Or I was making offers hoping they wouldn't be accepted because I didn't know what I'd do if I got them accepted. I wasn't properly equipped. The trading left me short of that. I didn't have a support structure. I wasn't focused enough. I didn't have a mentor at that point. And also I had these, unbeknown to me, and I only learned this when I found a mentor, and then that mentor happened to have a business coach they worked with that I worked with as a bit of a therapist, business coach, really unlocked a lot of things for me some years ago now. I had a limiting belief of unworthiness to build wealth, and I didn't know. So you may have the same one, but you may have a different one. But I place a large bet that a lot of the people listening to this podcast, that including yourself, will have limiting beliefs. So we need to seek out help around that. We need to get unstuck. We need to get our mind in order, because to build wealth, and I don't say that ashamedly. I say that very passionately because we need to put our own life mask on first. So I want to help the world, but I have to have my life mask on first so I can do that. Okay, something that I really respected. I'm going to go off tangent for a second now, but I think this could have a real rich story. Someone that I really respected was a few years ago the footballer Marcus Rashford. He got a load of heat, a load of stick for moving away from football to talk about how he grew up very poor, and he thinks that the school system is underserving children, and every single child in the UK should be eligible for a warm meal at least once a day, because sometimes at school that's the only chance. And I love that. I'm not going to comment on his football or his football team or anything like that, but just to use a platform. So he knew he had a voice. He knew he had a platform. He knew he had millions of followers, and he used that for good. But he got there by being selfish for 20 years on his football career, and then you can make a change, guys. So I speak very openly about building major wealth. I am, and we will. and it's now for a good reason, for a good place to help people. So just to use a different example as well, away from the world of football, it'd be Taylor Swift as well. She comes to mind. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Taylor Swift or to Marcus Rashford, but this is the mindset we want to adopt. So previously, I didn't feel worthy to build major wealth, but I put a bit of a wealth cap on myself, and we don't want to do that. We want to stay hyper focused in what we're doing and grow our wealth cap, because then when we build that, we can then go and do amazing things from that platform, like Marcus Rashford did. But also, what I'm hearing about Taylor Swift is just amazing. Like, I don't know her music, but I definitely say that I'm a Swiftie for what I hear her doing, because she's done her thing. She's stayed hyper focused. She's blocked out the noise. Everyone would say she's become world class at what she does. Okay, and she's put herself into a position of affluence, and then she's given back, and I love that. So a couple of months ago, she was doing a tour of the UK, and I heard that she gave all of her truckers, I think it was a global tour, apology. She gave all of her truckers, like carrying her gear around, $100,000 each as a bonus. Okay, just giving back. And even in here in the UK, wherever Taylor Swift was gigging, she'd fund a food bank for the entire year where she toured. Okay, that is simply amazing. So that's the kind of mindset we want to attach onto role models like that, because they focus, and they've become masters, and they've built incredible wealth, and they're very happy about that. But then they're in that position of affluence and power. They can then give back and help the world. And that's what I had to work on early on. I had to work on my mindset and my wealth position, so I can then do the things I really want to do in life. So I'm not comparing myself to Marcus Rashford or Taylor Swift, but do pick on certain heroes which you can align yourself to, and really know that wealth is a good thing, because we can do good things with it. Okay, it really is. Okay, but I had a limiting belief that I wasn't worthy to build that. Okay, because no one around me, there were these subconscious thoughts that no one around me's bought investment properties. Everyone around me is just working. Everyone's trying to save for their own house. You know, the generation that I'm in is not a given that you can buy a house in your 20s or 30s anymore. When I lived down south, it was 40, 50 people were buying their first homes, which is bonkers. So I had those limiting beliefs. I also had a lack of support, and then I was trying to do everything myself, and I was really unfocused. As a fourth point, I was shiny penny syndrome, guys. I'm sure some of you will have encountered this. There's a lot of noise in our space. Okay, so when you go down the rabbit hole of property investment, there's a lot of strategies. Okay, HMOs, flips, SA, buy to let, commercial conversion, social housing, supported living. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and it's frustrating. And all of those mistakes I made, guys, were avoidable. And in a future podcast, I will go into my top tips, but just do the opposite, guys. Do the opposite. Don't try and do everything yourself. Don't be unfocused. Don't not have a support system. So it just wasn't working for me. So what led to happen was, because if you can put yourself in my shoes for a second, of being unfocused, trying to do it all myself, no mentor, no one to care for, to go to, and then limiting beliefs. It led to me doing a very bad deal. Okay, and there's not enough of this. There's not enough of, this is why I started the podcast. There's not enough of raw honesty, the highs and the lows and the good and the bad and the ugly. But we need to hear it, because if just one person hears this, okay, I'm sure there's more than one of you listening, because this is an important topic to go through. But if one person avoids doing this, this is worthwhile. I'd be chuffed. Okay, and do reach out to me in future months if this has helped you. So what happened to me was I lost almost half my life savings. So over my 10-year career, I worked, I saved. I was already, without knowing it, I was relatively financially astute, i.e. tight. So we need to be good with numbers to be a good property investor. And one thing we need to be good at is personal finance, like stage one. You're not being in debt. And I was fortunate to have never been in debt. I worked very hard and saved, worked and saved, always would save more, earn more than what I spent. Even when I travel the world, I'm quite an old soul. I don't need fancy or flash. I like just real. Like, give me a nice walk and a cup of tea and good chat, and I'm happy. So going into tangents, but hopefully it's really useful, guys. So yeah, but I had some savings when I started investing, and I lost half of that in my first deal. Okay, so imagine that whatever your saving pot is, whether it's 5 grand, 50 grand, 500 grand, 5 million, imagine losing half of it in one deal. Okay, let's talk real for a moment on this. That's not a nice place to be. You can't sleep at night. You lose your appetite. That has an impact. Okay, that has an impact on you as a person. That has an impact on you, how you are with your family and your friends. It had an impact. Okay, it wasn't good. Okay, I was actually defrauded. So what happened? And I'll go down the rabbit hole for you on this story, because I think it's going to be full of rich value for you. So this is what happened. So I'm not going to mention the investment area because I don't want to name names, because it was a really toxic part of my life, and I've way moved on. This is years ago now, guys, but hopefully it'd be really advantageous to learn this. There was a deal that I looked at early on in terms of a portfolio that I could secure on a lease option. I learned all about creative strategies, and oh my God, you can buy properties for no money down now. It's really exciting. There was a deal that I looked at, and then it just didn't stack. There wasn't enough margin in it. The rent wasn't going to be high enough compared to the mortgages that had to be paid. It just didn't stack. The numbers show me it didn't stack. Remember, property is a people business and a numbers game. The numbers told me it didn't stack, so I moved on. And this happens to too many people. Okay, I moved on. I then started to look at other types of properties and other types of strategies in other parts of the country, as in I was unfocused. And then this deal came back up. Okay, it's a bit like, money burning a hole in your pocket. And by this point, I was more than half a year in. I'd done the training. I didn't have a mentor. It was a mistake. I didn't have a support system, and I was unfocused. And the deal came back up, and I looked at it again. And there were various red flags throughout that process of going back and then negotiating that deal. And I didn't listen to them. So I have to take ultimate responsibility for that. However, I was defrauded out of it. So there was some mortgage documents altered. Yep. Things happen in property. Okay. And that's why we need to get educated. And oh my Lord. If I just had someone to go to, hey, I can look at this for me. I didn't have anyone to go to. Okay. The only people that I knew at that point were people that I did trading with. They were on my level. We need people who were further ahead than us. So I heard this years ago, and it was really, really rung true. So the position we want to get to is we want people that are further ahead of us. You don't want light years ahead. So someone like Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, if I was wanting to start a podcast, I'm not going to go to him. He's not going to have time. He's too many steps above. Okay? Too many steps. So we need someone that are just a few steps ahead of us, because they're relatable. They understand what you've gone through. They can help you. They've been there. They've done that. And then ideally, we want people around us, so who are our peers. They're our friends. So I've got a lot of what I call genuine lifelong friends in property. I'm really grateful for. But then you want people that you're helping out as well. So you've got those that are helping you, i.e., let's say between 2 and 5 years ahead of you. And then you've got your peers, so you're within a couple of years of each other. And then you've got people that you'll start to help as well. And that's when property gets really, really rewarding. I didn't have that because I couldn't help anyone. I mean, I had skills and experience, but I was new. I was a newbie. So I had people around me, but they were all newbies as well. So I didn't feel like that I could take the deal to them. So I ended up doing the deal, and I was defrauded out of the money, and it was very messy, very toxic, very negative. Now, miraculously, I managed to get the money back. Okay, but that took 18 months. So the deal took so I'm about 2 years in now. I was doing other things by that point, but this deal, at one point, I'd lost half of my life savings. So I've been saving for my entire life for that. And I did manage to get it back. So I scrambled. I found good people in that area. They helped me. I'll never, ever forget that. And I've now managed to help them back. And I'll owe them lifelong gratitude for that. And we managed to do a couple of things. And it just made me laugh. I think I must have been crazy at that point. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed about this because by the time this got solved, I was having success. I was growing the portfolio because it was happening in the background. I made 13, lucky for some, £13 profit. 13. And I was delighted. So that was my first year as a property investor. The UK's worst, surely. And yeah, the reason I was delighted to essentially break even from that deal is for a long time it looked like I'd lost it. And my accountant later confirmed that, people do lose vast sums of money early on in property. Now, I don't mean to scare you off because I promise you everything that I did wrong is avoidable. I didn't have this podcast. I didn't have someone talking to me, giving me their honest insight. So don't be warned off. I made a load of errors and a load of mistakes. But property is really forgiving. I made all those mistakes. I made all those errors. I was doing it all wrong. And yet I didn't lose money. Okay, I got my money back after a lot of work and sleepless nights. I got my money back. So yeah, don't be alarmed. It all worked out fine. And I can tell you now, I'm a stronger investor in person for that experience, really. So why have I shared this with you? Why have I had this personal therapy session with you? I think there's real value in learning true, honest insights. Okay, because I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through at that point. I was having sleepless nights. I lost my appetite, which is not like me, because it was weighing heavy. It was a heavy burden. And I do hear horror stories out there. And if I can help you and guide you and make sure that the bad things don't happen to you, then brilliant. And then we can make sure the good things happen and focus our time and energy there. Okay. And really, we learn from my experiences. We can learn from other people's experiences so we don't make those same mistakes. Okay, they said that's one of there's two ways of learning. You either learn from other people's mistakes or you learn by doing them yourself. And I wouldn't want to see anyone make this kind of mistake because it's not a nice place to be. But let's just talk about, because this has been a bit of a downer episode. It's not like me, but I want to share the highs and the lows on the podcast because I see that there's not enough authenticity and honesty out there. There's lots of good news. Okay, so in the end, even though I started really poorly, okay, and I wasn't investing with support or knowledge or focus or doing everything correctly. Now, just a few years on, I've got a portfolio worth £7 million. I can take holidays whenever and wherever I want. I've got my lifestyle freedom. I've got my financial freedom. I'm grateful. I'm full of joy. I'm happy. So, and it's not, that wasn't too long ago. Okay, so there is good news in this. So if you're just starting out, and well done on finding this podcast so early on, and you'll be guided the right way. Brilliant. But if you've made mistakes, okay, if you've made errors, then don't beat yourself up and just keep going and learn from them. And I promise you, they can be the catapult to your success. And property tends to be really, really forgiving in the long term. Okay, probably very forgiving. In most markets, but for those buying, most markets, properties are appreciating. So if you do make a mistake on a refurb or with the wrong person, then in the long term you'll be looked after. So don't be too. I should have released this episode around Halloween, shouldn't I? But I promise, don't be too alarmed because these things we go through, they make us stronger, richer investors and richer people. So in sharing my first year, you learn from some of those mistakes I made. They were all fully avoidable. Okay, and if you don't make them, you'll have better success. And if you have made some, then just know they don't need to define you. Find solutions, move forwards, and then when you look back, you'll barely recognise what you went through then because you can achieve huge things in a short number of years, which is brilliant. Yeah, so that's let's end on a positive note. You can win from the outset. You don't need to lose before you win. But if you have lost then use that as a lesson and then move on. Okay, so I'm going to lean back into the good positive stuff next week. And so next week I'll go into my top tips for you. Okay, so some top tips to grow your portfolio. Okay, so that's a really exciting episode, far more positive than this one. So have a great week, guys, and I'll see you on the podcast next week for some top tips to grow your property portfolio. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Property Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave us a review so we can reach and help more people. I'll also be giving one person who leaves a review a free family holiday to one of our luxury holiday lets. Thank you, and see you next time.